Okay, so let's talk about batch sheets. A batch sheet is a fairly new capability that we've added within Nitro-CELL. It allows you to basically batch process routines of activities from within Nitro-CELL. So for example, if I wanted to create whole set of library parts by populating the part numbers I wanted and the data that went with them, and I had a model that could react and respond to that information to create saved instances of those things, we could do that very easily within Nitro-CELL. Or let's say that you want to have data come in from a vendor or a supplier that you need to incorporate, make it available within your PDM or PLM environment. You could use Nitro-CELL in a batch sheet to loop through everything that's on the hard drive and basically do an update of parameters or purge relations or do whatever you need to just try to make sure that things are correct and consistent. In order to do this, we're going to use an execute worksheet to kind of initialize the process. For this example, I'm just going to try to keep it more central to what we're doing within Creo. So I'm going to try to get data out of Creo, apply it to a batch sheet, and then go and let's loop through and open those models and maybe do something with them. So I'm going to start this off by creating a execute worksheet that will be executed from Nitro-CELL main. And we're going to say get stuff is going to be the name of that worksheet. So it's created our worksheet template for our execution worksheet, and it's added it to our main sheet. So as the main sheet executes downward, it's going to run that worksheet, which is right here, and then whatever commands we tell it to do here is what we'll process next. So our goal is to populate a batch sheet, so I'm going to go create a batch sheet real quick, and I'm just going to execute it from within. Actually, let's do it from the main sheet, and we'll say batch stuff is going to be the name of that. Now, this batch worksheet that was created is a little bit different than our others. Basically, it expects a column of data to be here, and then for every item that's in here, so for example, if I put in part 1.prt, part 2.prt, part 3.prt, if I add these items in here, as the batch goes from one row to the next, it will place an X, and that X basically triggers the formulas above to bring the data for that row to the top so that we can then reference that by other worksheets. So if we move from here to the next one, you'll notice that the part 2 data would come to the top. Since we're only dealing with parts this case and we're going to be looping through things, I'm only going to focus on this first column. What does it do once it increments to the next item? Well, it basically will run this execute worksheet, which we don't have labeled in here yet. That will take whatever data we're currently at, bring it to the top, and then go execute another worksheet that will reference this data to do something. You can exclude specific items from being processed here. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is put an X in, and Nitro-CELL will exclude that row from being processed and continue to move the incrementer down to the next item. So if this was the first item in our list, it would run that. Since this is excluded, it would step over it and then continue down to the third one. So we're going to take these out for now because I'm going to populate this from the primary sheet. So the first thing we need to do is we need to tell it to go get something. So if I want it to populate that worksheet, I'm going to come down to application and I'm going to say, let's go get the files that are currently in session. If you're curious about how these commands work, you can always slide over and find out what are the expectations, what do the commands do, and then fill out the columns accordingly. So in this case, I'm going to say star.prt, and then I'm going to run a sheet called batch underscore stuff is where I'm going to put the data. And then I need another sheet to actually do something. So I'm going to create another execution worksheet. We're going to run it as a subsheet because I don't need to run it from the main. And we're going to say do stuff. So that do stuff worksheet is actually what I want to run afterwards. So I'm going to put in do stuff for my instructions here. So it's going to get the files from in session, any PRT file, and then it's going to drop those into the batch stuff sheet, and then it's going to tell it to run the do stuff sheet. So currently there's nothing here. That's totally fine. If I come over here to my do stuff worksheet, let's just open the models. So I'm going to select my object type of model, and I'm going to scroll down to open. And now it's asking me, well, what do I want to open? Well, I actually want to open the value for this top row here. So if I come back here and I put in some test data like this, and we'll flag it as the current item, you can see that it will pull it across. That's just the standard Excel formula that's doing that. So I think we're ready to run. Let's clear that out and let's press the Do It button. And the first thing it's going to do is list all the files out of Creo Session, populate them within the batch stuff worksheet. And as you can see, it's iterating through each of these and opening each of those files because that's what we told it to do on the Do It stuff worksheet. So when it's completed, it will stop. And if we reran this again, it would reappend data. We'd have to purge it since we didn't use a purge command to filter the data out. But fundamentally, this is how batch worksheets work.